Razageth has burst onto the scene and feels like a pretty big threat. She respects strength, demands fear, and is absolutely done with the Titans being on Azeroth. She thinks that Order is a stain, the Titanforged are abominations, and from everything else that we're hearing about the Titans recently, you would be forgiven for thinking she was right. After all, they imprisoned her for 20,000 years for basically just saying no to being infused with their magic. But no, Razageth is actually a bit evil, and no matter how reasonable some of her arguments and her justifications are, we've seen into the Primalist future, we've seen the destruction it will bring to the world, and we've seen the length that Razageth will go to get there. So who is Razageth then, the big initial villain? Why is she so dangerous? And if she's the youngest of these primal incarnates, just what have we got coming next? Well, my segue to our sponsor, our patrons with the new December loot, which if you are on our Patreon through the end of December on the tier, then you'll get this awesome pin, as well as, of course, everything else that is going on there. We've got the class card, got the awesome art, of course, videos as we make them, so early, and a whole bunch else, lore walking podcast, and we are making big old plans to put more and more into that as time goes on, especially in the new year. So, patrons, thank you. You are honestly the backbone of what we do as we try to make more ambitious series like the Big Dragon series, which we definitely want to do more of in the future. It's you guys who are keeping it real, making it all possible. So, name of the credits, awesome loot, more great shit like that, hit up the link down below. Razageth is a monster twisted by the pain she has suffered. She is blinded by revenge, but it did not start that way. Thousands of years ago, the Titans arrived to find the old god-infested world. The Black Empire was alive and strong, but they were able to find victory. The Titans then ordered Azeroth, and proto-drakes took advantage, becoming apex predators. The golden age of the proto-drake came to an end, though, when Tyr decided that the path of the Titans needed new servants, and uplifted 5 of them into being the Aspects after they aided him in defeating Galakrond. Now, Razageth was like any other proto-drake, if a little more powerful, and Razageth was so close to Alexstrasza herself that they were like clutchmates. But that's where the division set in. After the fall of Galakrond, many dragons choose to join one of the 5 uplifted flights. But many drakes, with their basic intelligence, thought that it was basically slavery, but with another name. I mean, who are these big stone people from the sky to come down here, own our planet, and tell us what to do? No longer could Alexstrasza and the Aspects hunt free and claim the planet as their own. Now, they served their big masters from outer space who wanted to control it for themselves. But Alex and co. thought it was a good idea. Dragons looked down then on their proto-drake kin. Even the term proto-drake being said by a dragon, that feels derogatory. And the more the primalists protested, the more the new Aspects flexed their massive new titanic power. Until the Drakes found a power of their own, something older, more primal, more connected to the world herself. The Drakes created the Primalist movement, and the most powerful of them became Incarnates of the raw elemental energy of the world. Remember that before the Black Empire arrived, it was Azeroth and the elements. The elements actually fought against the old gods, but then of course were defeated and subjugated. So this is really going back to the deepest history of the world. Each one of these incarnates became a dark manifestation of the elements, and Razageth's raging personality gave her the name Stormeater. With all this, the board was set. The Aspects and their titanic allies on one side, the primal incarnates and their primalists on the other. War was inevitable. That is actually why Neltharion created the Drakthir, as foot soldiers in this war. The primalists were such a threat that he decided to build a private army, one that embodied the power of all of the flights, but they were still not enough. Razageth attacked the Forbidden Reach and tore through the ranks of the Drakthir, and in her ultimate clash with Neltharion, destroyed the Titan artifact that he was using to control the Drakthir. Neltharion at this point was on the brink of defeat, and willingly or foolishly summoned the power of the Void, and used it to defeat Razageth. And this is likely why Razageth was trapped in the Forbidden Reach, which is Neltharion's island laboratory, and not in the vault with the other Incarnates, which of course is going to be the setting for our first raid, as Razageth will want to break them out of jail. Now the question is, if she was such a big threat then, why did the Aspects just not kill her? Well, if we're to believe Alexstrasza, it's because even then, they were like family, and they couldn't just kill them, it would just feel wrong. So they ended up doing something arguably worse. Locked them up for 20,000 years? But of course, it's only 20,000 years because at least Razageth's broken out. It was probably supposed to be life imprisonment for basically an immortal creature. Which, I mean, that's some level of hell shit. Razageth rightly calls it the suffering that Alexstrasza and co. inflicted on her, the pain of being forgotten, right? Just, that's it. You've been defeated, you're locked away, we're going to tell nobody about you, nobody will know you even existed. Deletion. So Razageth then believes that the Titans really just enslaved Azeroth, and in turn, she was locked up for 20,000 years. That is her two big motivations for revenge. Another way to understand Razageth is by diving into the modern primalist movement that we see in-game, and the types of people who really have been brought on board. 20,000 years pass, right? And then, at some point in the last 5 years, a modern primalist movement forms. It draws people with the same motivations, elementalists bent on revenge. The Primalists gathered their strength and, led by Kurog Grimtotem, struck at the Forbidden Reach, freeing Razageth. Now, Kurog had remained loyal to Magatha Grimtotem. Of course, the Grimtotems are that faction of Tauren that did not join the Horde, so it certainly is up to no good. But then he found a greater calling in the Primalists. Before arriving on the Dragon Isles, Kurog crashed the wedding of Lorthamar and Thalyssra. Uninvited, he took the opportunity to insult the bride and groom for inviting dragons. He had 2 points. First, he called Rathian and the Black Dragons the most unnatural of dragons, because they were proto-drakes touched by Order and Void. Then, when he was told he wasn't invited, he said he was a shaman, and that the world was his. For lack of interactions with Razageth, this is a pretty complete insight into her mind. Order, Void, anything else that's came to Azeroth, to her, it's unnatural, it's bullshit, and really, those who command the elements of the planet own the planet. It also shows us the type of people that gravitate to Razageth and her Primalists. It's typically people who want to take power back into their own hands, but of course, who will do it in the most extreme ways, such as Coraleth. She walked the Dragon Isles like the hand of Razageth herself, and her most interesting feature is the burn marks on her face. Now, we have no confirmation of this, but it certainly feels, given that she's a Night Elf with a big burn mark, that she's a survivor of Teldrassil. She has that core of pain, right? But there's actually more. Coraleth's whole ambition in the Uniron Plains was to invade the ancient burrow so that she could use its gate to the Emerald Dream. She wanted to get to the dream. And the only reason I could really see for sending her for that job was that she would have this drive to strike back at the goddess who abandoned her people. Because ultimately, that's how a lot of Night Elves feel about Elune. We've only had a couple of interactions with Razageth whilst adventuring, right? And each has been very much just plain in-your-face action. She attacked the ruby life pools, attempting to infuse primal power into the dragon eggs. of course prompting Alexstrasza to fight. She could barely hold her off, and even when pushed back, Razageth was happy to let Alexstrasza live so that she could see everything that she built destroyed. This is when the sympathy for Razageth goes out the window, because clearly cruelty has overwhelmed every other emotion. She doesn't want to just defeat Alexstrasza, she wants to dismantle her lie, expose it to the whole world, destroy her kingdom, cast out the people that she works for and their forces, force her to watch all of this, and then kill her. Razageth is aware of far more than we may think as well. She despises anything of titanic creation, so it was telling then when she was facing down Kelagos and Khadgar at Vakthros. She called them both abominations. Drakes twisted into dragons with titanic magic, and humans as titanic creations filtered back, of course, to the Vrykul. Even the fact that Khadgar used arcane magic, she called that unnatural. Again, think about where arcane would be on the Titan cosmology chart. And this could point to one of Razageth's larger mysteries. What was she doing in the Azure Span? The aspects are unaware, only that she intended to destroy the ley line running underneath it. Now, if she believes that arcane is unnatural to Azeroth, I mean, we literally have a place called the Halls of Infusion that's all about infusing order magic. Well, if she thinks that arcane leyline stuff is unnatural, that means that this whole planet has a nexus of unnatural energy running all over it, but just under the surface. A network of, from her perspective, awful Titan corruption that is just constricting the world. So, what could all this be? What could this net of arcane ley lines be? A prison? A way to pump the world soul full of order juice? Whatever it is, she clearly wants to get rid of that arcane influence. And from these personal interactions, we can see that Razageth is very, very powerful, but she's also driven and has a fairly dark intelligence. She is able to organize and command armies, she is aware of events that unfolded in a pretty deep way, and that includes Galakrond, which could be big. The story of Galakrond has always been a little bit muddy, but right now, well, there's a lot to unpack. Was he the father of dragons? No. It seems that was kind of like just a lie. That was just the way that the aspects kind of told it. Was he something natural? So far, we think no. In Dawn of the Aspects, years ago, it was hinted that Galakrond was some kind of Titan experiment gone wrong. And if you take a look at the notes, the letters from Tyr to Odin, it seems like the Halls of Infusion are trying to remove whatever void corruption ended up nudging Galakrond to go the way that Galakrond did. Now, on the Isles, we are discovering that the Titans and the Old Gods had a bit of a hand in Galakrond's creation then. The mutated Drake's biggest feature was his insatiable hunger. He just consumed everything. Now, of course, we know that the Primalists actually worship Galakrond in some way, but in what way, we actually don't know. But if you put this all together, we do get something that is a little bit more spooky. When talking about the Primalist threat, Nosdormu mentions the hunger of Iridikron. Iridikron is one of the Incarnates, but like how Razageth twists wind into being the Storm Eater, he twists earth into being the Stone Scaled. In fact, even the mention of Iridikron's hunger is too much for Alexstrasza to speak about, but her reaction is one that is full of trauma, which of course makes us wonder what the hell went on. Like the Primalists, are they worshipping Galakrond to the point of, in this case, one of the Primal Incarnates like almost manifesting Galakrond's endless hunger? I don't know, but I mean, that does kind of mean there's almost potential for a little mini Galakrond to be stuck in the Isles. But here's the kicker. The other two Incarnates do not even have a name that we know of or see in-game. Now, I say this because we need to understand Razageth as one thing above all else. A herald. The youngest and we think the weakest, but the Incarnates are key to freedom nonetheless. If we're to see her as anything, we should see her as a taste of what is to come. And ultimately, that is a story of kind of rejecting all of the bullshit that's descending upon the world of Azeroth. It is basically just pushing back. This kind of Azeroth is, this is our planet. Please piss off and stop using us in your stupid cosmic game. Which then, of course, cuts straight down to the core of things. I mean, if you look at the Scarlet Crusade, right? Great villains in the game. Well, the Scarlets had a pretty reasonable enemy, but the problem was they went so extreme and hardcore that, yeah, they were our enemies, even if we thought maybe, okay, you've got a few good points about the Scourge. And I think that similar thing is happening here. Razageth and her people are like the Scarlet Crusade to a reject the cosmology bullshit, reject all of the, forces trying to influence us. What's natural here? What's natural in our world? Well, it's that our world has a soul and the elements are here. Other shit, not natural. And I think that's just what we're going to see be explored. And one of the great lies that was kind of pasted atop all of this was the one of the kingdom that Alexstrasza built, and how nobody really knew that there was an opposing viewpoint. Because if you think about the role that the dragons have had, they will have very much set the tone for like aeons to come, right? So the way that core Azerothian history is almost seen as being from a order and sort of Titanish perspective, I guess you could actually say that's because Alexstrasza's whole sort of little dragon empire kept that going. Yeah, I wonder where they're going to go. Definitely, they could go too hard, a little bit too weird in some of these things, but also, I do think the idea of rejecting everybody's bullshit and claiming back some free will and not being a lackey to some big cosmic man in the sky, I think that is potentially quite a good story if it's done right. So, if you're wondering, who is Razageth? What does she want? What's going on? I've never seen this dragon before. Help, what's happening? I hope this video at least did help you out. Of course, if you want some more narrative content on the dragons, then you can check out our dragon series. And with that, I'll see you next time.